It is an unfortunate reality that the drug epidemic has destroyed and continues to destroy the Zimbabwean youth. Religion, gender, race, socioeconomic status are not enough armory to fight against this deadly menace. Throughout this program, the Pulling the Plug campaign, we are going to have individuals and families coming over to share their journey to recovery, the misconceptions, the often overlooked routes to healing. And today, we're privileged to host one man who has shown that it is indeed possible to overcome and to conquer addiction. We have Tonderai Maposa with us here today. Welcome, Tonderai, to the program.
Thank you for having me on the program, Tatenda.
You're welcome. So we want to talk about addiction and your journey to recovery, right? So on your experience with addiction, please take us through how did you even get into addiction in the first place?
I got into addiction when I was in my freshman year in university. And I believe it was because I violated everything that I had been taught up growing to know. For starters, I started hanging out with people that did things which I was taught I wasn't supposed to do. A lot of my friends in university were people that went to the clubs, so I joined them in violation of my AY Legion of Honor, which states to honor Christ in the places which I choose to go. That impulsive type of mindset. So when I got into club, I noticed very many things which I'd seen on TV, and this kind of lifestyle appealed to me. So I wanted to experiment. While I was in the bar, I saw guys holding bottles of alcohol, and it seemed that the guys that had this alcohol were attracting a lot of attention from the young ladies that were in there to tender. So I thought, well, if I get myself a bottle of alcohol myself, I probably will attract this attention as well. And true to my thoughts, I did attract that attention. As soon as I got that alcohol, the pigeons started coming through. And one thing led to the next. Very soon, before I knew it, the tolerance kicked in. One bottle used to get me drunk. Next, I needed 2. Next, I needed 3. Before I knew it, dependence also kicked in. So it was really going against what I had been taught when I was younger and doing that which I knew was not correct. I got led into the addiction.
Okay. And at what point did you realize that you were addicted? Was it you who pointed it out? Was it people around you who noticed? How did that go?
Right. I got told by my sister straight in my face, Shamiso, that you are a drug addict, Toto. When she said that initially to me, I was like, whoa. And I then looked at what I was doing. I couldn't wake up without needing a cigarette. I couldn't eat without needing a cigarette afterwards. So it was when I was knee deep in the addiction that when my sister pointed it out to me, I realized that, whoa, I really was addicted.
Okay. It's interesting that you mentioned your sister, because my next question is that how did addiction impact your relationship with your loved ones?
My loved ones took a really big toll because of addiction. For starters, because addiction is going to lead to a lot of other things, I developed a knack for stealing things. That was how I was funding my addiction. And unfortunately, the loved ones, particularly my father, was the biggest victim of this. At one point, my dad totally disinherited me. He called the family to a meeting and said to my brothers and sisters, Tonderai has stolen enough from me. Hence, I am deleting him from my will. He banished me from home. My sisters, because they've told me, they were constantly worried about me. You know, being child of a vice chancellor, I was quite popular at school, so everybody knew me. There were constant reports to my sisters about me being seen in situations that were not okay. It was apparent that I was in a mess. So it was an emotional roller coaster for the family. dealing with Tonderai being a thief at home, but still he's your brother. You've got to love him like that. But you have to have that distance because any opportunity I got to strike, I would. I also remember a serious incident where in 2013, my mother was on her deathbed. The family actually sat together and they said it would be best if we don't have Tonderai close to Mama because they thought my presence close to her was going to get her situation to deteriorate. So this drugging really severed my relationship with my family. While they loved me, I know that you will always love your sibling. It tore away at my interaction with them. It was terrible. I also remember another incident. I would go home. My sister was now at my father's place. And when I got there, she picked up the phone and she was like, Papa, Papa, that thing is here. It's here to steal. I stopped being a human being to some extent and was that thing that they were very afraid of, but at the same time loved very much. That's a difficult question because it was really a kaleidoscope of emotions that I put them through.
And what did that do to you? Because your relationships are being impacted negatively, your relationships with your loved ones, right? But what did that do to you specifically? Did you even see the harm that was taking place in your life? Or for you, it was just life as normal?
While I was addicted, I really didn't care. I remember while I was at Salusi, breaking into the computer lab and stealing computers over there to feed the habit. The embarrassment that it caused my father. For me, I didn't care, right? The emotions of caring about my actions only kicked in as I was now getting out of the addiction. But while I was at it, the only thing I was concerned about was feeding the habit. I had to feed this master that I had. You see, the addiction was like a terrible slave driver. All that I was concerned about was the high at the time. So while I was enjoying my addiction, I didn't care how my family thought. It didn't even dawn on me, Tatenda. It's not anything that came into my mind at the time. Yeah, only later on, years and years after, 15 to be precise, into my addiction, did I start looking at what I was doing to my family, which is one of the things that I held on to get me out of the addiction.
15 years of addiction. How did it progress up to a point where you then said, no, something has to give. Things need to change now. Because 15 years is a long time.
It's a very long time.
So Tonde, from alcohol to cigarettes, which drugs exactly were you taking when you were addicted?
At the height of my addiction to Tenda, I was taking 7 substances. The alcohol, called in the cigarettes, which led to the marijuana, that's mbanje. Then the codeine, bronco or benylin, and then diazepam tablets, then cat, which is a cheap form of cocaine, and at the height of it all, I was taking crystal meth. So that's the 7 demons that had a hold of me.
And what did these demons do to you?
The alcohol used to excite me a lot. I'd get hyper. The codeine, it's usually called lean, that would make me just chill. If you've heard about kustika.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what the lean would do to me. The crystal meth, on the other hand, would get me very, very hyper. I remember once upon a time when I was contracted to work somewhere, I would use that to keep me up all night during the night shift. So these drugs here had various effects. Diazepam would take me into a trance-like state where I would be warped straight to heaven. And I would see various things. So these drugs, they had different effects on me. Yeah, but by and large, it was producing a high, a euphoria. It was making me forget what the reality in life really was.
Okay. And how long were you addicted for?
For 15 years.
For 15 years.
For 15 years.
And during these 15 years, what kind of relationship or what kind of perception did you have of yourself? You mentioned that your family looked at you and perceived you as a thing, right? But what about you? Did you see yourself in the same way?
At some point, I started to notice it because I call it the drug veil.
Okay.
A certain presence about you that just makes you undesirable. I remember walking into certain locations and people would just immediately start being protective of their assets, right? So I could feel that there was a repulsive aura about me, which really did make me feel like a thing. I could feel something was really not normal about me. It's not nice when you get into a place and you've really never done anything to anyone in that place, but they're very repelled by you.
Yeah.
So I could feel that something was very wrong with me.
Okay. And 15 years of addiction, at what point did you then say, you know what, I think this has to come to an end?
I wouldn't particularly put it to a point, but rather a combination of points. When I realized that a lot of the people that I'd grown up with were further ahead of me in life. People who I knew I was better than at school. Fortunately, we can't mention names. I was a lot better than these guys, but these guys had families that were thriving. I took a look at it and I was like, no, this can't be me. I had been disinherited. The family didn't want to be close to me anymore. The drug society that I was in really had no love to it. They were just there to take me for what I had stolen. As soon as the money was gone, they were gone as well. And I said I was better than this. I thought I was better than this, and that had to stop. So it was a combination of those points, of those factors, that got me to say, I had to stop. I had to take an inventory of my life, where I thought I was supposed to be and where I actually was. I made the decision to say no. I was going mad, Tate. I was going crazy. I was in the streets telling people I was dead. I was a ghost. When I looked at that in retrospect, I was like, nah, this has got to stop. So it was a combination of factors that came together to make one big reason for me to stop. I needed to get a grip on my life.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. One thing you can say to someone who may be struggling with addiction, just one thing.
The strength is within you to get out of that addiction. You got to dig deep. I call them the superpowers, which everybody has. These are human endowments that if they are willing to use, they can get out of addiction. The strength is within you. Simbariri mauri amandla aguwe to get out of drugs.
Thank you so much, Twende, for sharing your story. And thank you so much for audience for listening into the story as well. We know that addiction can destroy lives. It can, it can destroy lives. It can leave us feeling hopeless. But Twende here has shared something with us that has shown us that you can dream again, you can live again, you can survive through this. So I hope this was an encouragement to you as well. Now we're going to move on to the next segment with Tsitsi Mashinya, as she's going to be touching on recovery and the whole journey. This is Pulling the Plug, Rewire Your Destiny.
Welcome back to the second segment of our Pulling the Plug show. With me, I'm continuing with Twende Maposa. Welcome, Twende.
Thank you.
Tell me, Twende, describe to me in a nutshell what your life was like before your recovery.
Before my recovery, my life was a mess. It was dark. It was scary. It was, I probably could put it in a description for you. It's one of those moments where, for one, last night I was buying someone beer and alcohol, and today I'm hungry and they couldn't even give me a piece of bread to eat. It was an evil, cold, lonely place. with no love whatsoever.
Okay. So what prompted you to seek help and start your recovery journey?
It was a reflection of my life. It was wanting to get out of that trap that I was in. I felt I was in a dungeon which I needed to escape from as soon as possible. That's what prompted me to want a better life. I knew that there was a life that was better than the life that I was in, and I knew it was attainable. So that's what got me to want to get out of that place that I was in.
Okay. So you knew that there was, a better place than the one that you were in that moment. So my question now is, it's one thing to know that you can come out of it, but now to actually take the steps to come out of it, it's a totally different thing. So tell me, what did your recovery really look like?
Right. My recovery was a combination of many factors. I call them Damascus experiences, right? The first one, these are various support systems that I got to get out. While I was in this place, my father never stopped paying for my medical aid. I had medical support from him. That love kept ringing to me. The second one was the social support that came from my sisters. At my point of insanity, when I broke, when I was going mad, my sister Shamiso came and picked me up, and she had an all-night prayer for me, right? I also had the support of prior knowledge, the things that I had learned when I was growing up. I'm a big fan of the Pathfinder Club, right? So my conscience kept playing that back in my mind. The Pathfinder law is for me to keep the morning watch, do my honest part, care for my body. Pause right at care for my body. It kept ringing to me. I was not caring for my body anymore. So I had to start caring for my body again. And then self-support. This one here is one of the biggest ones. I remember going to Annex and the doctor telling me, Tonderai, there is no cure for addictions. So the realization of that in itself got me to dig deep. She told me I had to look within myself for the power. Then I came up, after studying what had happened to me, we came up with the superpowers that helped me to come out of the addiction.
Okay, that's very interesting. So if I heard correctly, you mentioned the family support system. You also mentioned the power within one,
Yes.
within the person, and the conviction that you should have to say, I want to get out of this.
Yes.
So help us identify other support systems. For example, there might be someone out there trying to, to go through the recovery journey like you did, but they might not have that support system, the family support system. And sometimes to look inward might be difficult. You need external forces sometimes to push you to say, go this way, to guide you in a way. So what is your message to that person?
Right. There was a lot of communal support that came, right? A lot of this begins with you seeking that help. I constantly went to church where I got support from people that kept praying for me, right? I personally sought the help by going to a place like Annex, right? They were doctors that were qualified to help me deal with my situation. There are support groups, various support groups out through the country that help people to realize that they are in a problem. But what I really want mostly is for us to hone in on one's personal conviction that they're in a problem. Once you know that you've got a problem, there are places that you could go to for that. For me, it was the church. That was the place of refuge for me. I went there, and from that, I got a lot of support from people that were there and the community, the church community at large.
Thank you very much, Tandere. So in our audience, there is a mother there's a father maybe struggling with a child who is addicted, and they want the best for their child. What's your message to them?
My message to the parent, the father, the mother, the cousin, the sister, with someone struggling with addiction, I want you to grasp these 5 superpowers. The first one, we all have got that Holy Spirit within us that's going to help us to overcome our addictions. That's going to give us the strength to be able to overcome our addictions. The second one is we all have got an imagination. Now, this is a power that is common to all human beings. You need to use your imagination to envision yourself out of that addiction. After your imagination, you need to grip onto your independent will, your own willpower. You are never a victim. You have got the choice to say yes, to say no. Nobody forces a bottle into your hand. Nobody forces that bottle down your throat. You've got that independent will to not take whatever is intoxicating you. Next, we've got self-awareness. You know where you're weak and where you're strong. Look at my story. I was weak in the pubs and in the beer halls, but I found strength in church communities. I found strength in family. You know where you're weak. And then lastly, we all have got a conscience. That voice that says to you, this is what you're doing, this is right, this is wrong, do it, do not do it. So if we take a hold of those 5 superpowers, they will give us the power to never get into drugs again. And if you are in them, they'll give you the power to get out of drugs.
So you were addicted to these 7 substances for 15 years. It's not easy to just say, I want to stop and, come out the other side. Tell me about the withdrawal process. How was it like?
Right. The withdrawal process is a process where you get shakes, you get headaches. Some people are going to shiver. Some people are just going to lie flat on the ground because of not having that substance. They stop being function. They can't function without that substance. Fortunately for me, I didn't suffer from withdrawal. However, they do give you pills to deal with the withdrawal process, particularly a tablet that's called diazepam. Unfortunately, in my situation, I was also addicted to diazepam. I started to crush the tablet and lace it in the marijuana and smoke it for a better high. So I had to, once again, dig deep within myself to get that. I got to a point where I told myself I would rather go through the withdrawal than spend one more moment when I was high. My quest for sobriety totally overtook anything that was there. I was not going to let withdrawal stop me from achieving that sobriety. So in my case, I call myself a case of grace. I didn't suffer much from withdrawal, but the process of detoxification will require one to separate themselves from a lot of the triggers that will cause them to relapse into the addiction again. What I did for myself was to distance myself from friends that had become triggers. I totally told myself I was not going to see them anymore. I had to cut ties totally. So God was quite gracious with me because withdrawal did not harass me too much. But to those that suffer from the withdrawal process, they go through detoxification, where they're given tablets and medication to help alleviate the effects of leaving drugs when they leave drugs.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Thank you for, I was about to also ask to say, please help us identify some of those triggers, but you've already identified them.
Right.
Might be friends. I know there are more, if you can help us.
Right.
Yes.
They might be friends.
Mm-hmm.
It might be an environment. As soon as I got to a certain location, I would feel I needed to smoke. There might be pictures. There might be. Each person has got different triggers, but usually they come in the form of people. They come in the form of places. But that's what posed a lot of triggers for me. Just passing by someone in town that was smoking, could have become a trigger for me. So you actively have to make sure that you don't get to places that are going to trigger you.
Thank you very much, Tonde. So there is hope. We agree. There is hope.
For as long as there is life, there is hope.
Thank you very much. Thank you for watching our show. Join us again at Bluffhill SDA Church's Facebook page and YouTube channel for more. Stay blessed.